Welcome to episode 151 of the GT on 5G. It's the latest inside scoop on everything 5G. We cover 6 topics in about 20 minutes, and it's brought to you by More Insights and Strategy. I'm Will Townsend, and joining me again this week is fellow analyst Anshel and Will. But before I get started, I just want to wish our viewers and listeners a very happy 4th of July Independence Day. And if you don't live in the States, we wish you all the best as we're coming off a big holiday week. We didn't want to be remiss and skip an episode, so we're doing a special holiday episode this week. But let's go to my first topic, and I want to talk about NTT. And I caught this on RCR Wireless News. They're deploying an IoT and an AI-infused network to create a live digital twin of the Tour de France. There's no mention of 5G, but it got me thinking, could bringing 5G into it supercharge things? And from my perspective, it could. I'm a big cyclist, so I did triathlon back in the day when I was fit. And I like to watch the Tour de France. I've actually not ever personally witnessed it. I was able to see the Tour di Gialia, which is an Italian race, when I was in Rome earlier this year. But I think it's really cool, and it's an innovative approach. And so what NTT is doing is, again, leveraging AI. And as I've read through the article, it's going to be able to provide a live visual rendering of the event, including real-time readouts of sundry race stats, consumption by race teams, broadcasters, and spectators. And NTT is doing the same for the women's race. And, if you don't recall, or if you don't watch it, a couple of years ago, a fan actually stood in front of a cyclist. It caused a massive accident. There were 20 or 30 cyclists that were involved in it. And I'm just wondering, could AI prevent that? But I don't know if you caught the news, man, but do you have any thoughts or insights?
I didn't, but you did trigger a thought in my head where you could have, security staff, um, you know, getting like a beep in their ears 10 seconds ahead of the big, um, group heading their way, and they could really tighten
Yeah.
up security right in advance. I think there's a lot of things you can do when you have good data. The one thing I was curious about, do you know whose IoT solution network frequency was powering this? Because it sounds like if it's in France, maybe it would be a LoRaWAN thing.
I didn't find that detail in that article, but that's a very, very good point. I mean, if I were to guess, there's probably some LoRaWAN tech involved, and that's definitely going to be, on the lower end of the spectrum bands, just for propagation and power and all of that.
But for the
Yeah,
space that they're covering, maybe it makes sense.
yeah, yeah. I wish I knew the answer to that, but it probably, warrants some further investigation. But I just thought it was because, when there's discussion around digital twin and IoT, it's typically around manufacturing and improving manufacturing yields and that sort of thing. So I thought it was sort of an interesting sort of play on digital twin, applying that to the biggest, professional cycling race on the planet. But hey, man, let's go to your first topic. And I didn't catch this. I guess, I was enjoying my 4th of July a little bit too much, but you want to talk about Dish and the possibility of their merging with Echostar.
So I think this just published. So
Okay.
it's fairly hot off the presses, which is probably why you missed it. So don't feel guilty.
Okay.
Um, but this is a story from Monica over at Fierce Wireless, and
Mm-hmm.
she's writing that Dish is exploring a merger with EchoStar, which for some people who might not know, both companies are actually owned by Charlie Ergen.
Yeah.
And they actually were originally part of the same company, and they spun EchoStar off from Dish, as EchoStar is more of like a commercial enterprise solution, while Dish is more of a consumer product. And it sounds like he might be looking to merge the two companies together, leveraging a lot of the strengths that EchoStar has to
Yeah.
bolster Dish, while it's trying to roll out its 5G network. She said that there were no comments from either companies, but that um, Semaphore reported this, and they are a pretty well-known publication for getting a lot of exclusives. So it's
Yeah.
not really clear whether or not this will happen. Nobody's really officially commented on it, but it's definitely a possibility considering that he owns both companies, and that EchoStar is in a better financial position and does have a
Yeah.
lot of spectrum.
Just, because this is kind of new news for me, but if I were to speculate, obviously Dish has had, its financial difficulties, it's had challenges with deploying its next generation, totally cloud native, highly disaggregated topology. And, given that and given some of the financial concerns, I mean, this may be his attempt to sort of, I don't know, leverage some synergy with Echostar, right? And, maybe reduce some overhead. I don't know. Was there any detail? I didn't catch the article, but was there any detail around, reduction in variable expenses like workforce reduction or anything like that? Or
No, this was reported in about a day ago, but it's
yeah,
starting to pick up steam today.
yeah.
Um, but it looks like Semaphore was the one who wrote the story, um,
Hmm.
and it's more talking about the merging of the two pieces of his telecom empire, more
Yeah.
than real details on how and why.
And the why, yeah. Maybe that'll come out. It is a holiday week and there are a lot of folks off. So yeah, but we'll keep tabs on this. And if things develop like the whole, altimeter thing, FAA, FCC debacle, it may become a recurring theme. But let's move to my second topic this week. And I want to talk about T-Mobile. And you and I have talked about T-Mobile and their relationship with Major League Baseball. It's no secret you're a huge Padres fan. I'm sorry your team's not doing well this season, buddy. I'm a huge Astros fan. We're doing okay. We're in second place. The Rangers are in front of us. But what I love about T-Mobile is they really sort of lean into their uniqueness and focus on things like this. So I like to say that they're knocking it out of the park with some 5G fan activations. And at a high level, and this was a press release that they issued earlier this week. Um, just perfect timing. It's summer. We're in the the thick of baseball season. But some of the things they're doing. They're working with MLB Next, that app delivering AR experiences for fans at T-Mobile Park. That includes 3D data visuals and live broadcast audio. Certainly, we've seen 5G from an audio perspective be deployed in places like the NFL. Actually, at Cisco Live, they had, I believe it was the CIO of NFL, and she kind of touched on that a little bit. But some of the other things they're doing, no surprise to me, 5G camera feeds during a particular event there at T-Mobile Field where they're doing like a home run derby batting practice. And I think you've talked about that in the past. And then finally, Sirius XM All-Star Futures game featuring top minor league prospects. They're testing an automated ball strike system powered by T-Mobile's 5G advanced network solution. So, and ANS is something that I've talked about. It's their public-private hybrid verticalized sort of approach to providing private networking from a 5G perspective. So it's all pretty cool stuff. Did you catch the news? Anything to
I do kind of wish I was there.
add? Right.
I didn't really think about it until it was too late. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think T-Mobile has definitely been very aggressive with the MLB.
Yeah.
They have their T-Mobile Tuesdays deal where you get the MLB streaming capabilities through the MLB TV app. So there's a lot of tie-ins between T-Mobile and MLB, and it feels like the Home Run Derby, and also
They
I
own
think
it. Pretty much they own it, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
they've been sponsoring it for the last few years, and they're using like a head-mounted camera using 5G. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that they're trying to do with the MLB, and clearly they're investing in sports where Verizon isn't.
Yeah.
Verizon owns the NFL, and they're
Yeah.
really leaning into the MLB and the MLS. which I think is pretty clever because those are younger audiences,
Hmm.
and those are growing. They're not as big as the NFL, but they're growing. Uh,
Yeah.
I used to think baseball was dying, but like, it's been growing with the younger audience and dying with the older audience.
Yeah.
Um, and MLS is like, much younger. So I think T-Mobile is really leaning into leveraging newer teams, newer leagues. The LAFC thing that we talked about a few weeks ago with the
Hmm.
MLS. So
Yeah.
they're really being more creative with how they're using their weight and their technology to enhance the fan experience.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It fits really well with their demographic, the end carrier, the unconventional approach. But they're also appealing to the people my age. I'm a little bit older than you are, the 55 plus with certain rate plans and entitlements and that sort of thing. You're spot on. Verizon really owns a lion's share of NFL with their ultra wideband. With AT&T, they're doing a lot of collegiate sponsorship. So they've sponsored the Final
And
Four
NBA, they do a lot of
and
NBA stuff.
yeah, an NBA, and I also mentioned the Red River Shootout, my Texas Longhorns against the Oklahoma Sooners. But AT&T is headquartered in Dallas, so
I was gonna say AT&T loves Texas.
yeah, AT&T loves Texas because their headquarters is there, and their CEO, Mr. Stanky, resides there as well. But it's great stuff. And it's another really great demonstration of the power of 5G and something that we all love, baseball, at least you and I love. So, but let's move to your second topic. I did catch this and it did surprise me. So I'll be interested to get your insights here. But you talk about OpenSignal quite a bit, and they just published a recent 5G report, and they called Verizon a winner over T-Mobile with respect to its experience metrics and uplink measurements. But man, I want to hear more from you because this is surprising to me.
Yeah, I think this is it's a challenging report, mostly because they the five pillars of 5G experience. It's really confusing, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
because they have six experience pillars and one coverage pillar,
Okay.
and then they award winners based on um, their experience index. So the first four categories are 5G video experience, 5G live video experience, 5G games experience, and 5G voice app experience.
Hmm.
And then the others are download speed, upload speed, and availability. What doesn't make any sense to me is that how does T-Mobile win on download and availability and just ever so slightly squeak out a loss by like a megabit on uplink, but
Yeah.
lose in all experience metrics? Because experience
Yeah.
metrics are based on an index that OpenSignal has created. So I don't really understand how Verizon can lose to T-Mobile in or win to T-Mobile in video experience by a point, and then but have half the download speed. So
Do
T-Mobile's
you
download
think?
speed is over 200 megabits per second, while
Yeah.
Verizon's is like 100. And I'm really trying to
Yeah.
understand how they're so close to each other. Even AT&T is a 60. So like I don't really understand their index. I think they um uh talk about in more detail, but it's not really, it doesn't, the numbers don't really make that much sense to me.
Yeah.
If they're so far apart in downlink and coverage, why is the experience so close?
Yeah, when I saw this, I didn't dig into it, so I'm glad you picked it as a topic this week. I wanted to call kind of bullshit on that because when you look at how much further ahead T-Mobile is with not only just their overall spectrum, deployment, low, mid, and high, but just the fact that they've been first to SA, and that Verizon, is still deploying its mid-band C-band footprint. It calls into question whether there's some manipulation here going on, whether Verizon could manipulate some of whatever feeds into the indices, that kind of tally a winner, tally a loser. But yeah, something smells a little
Well,
suspect
one
to
thing
me.
I'll say is they do define how these experiences are quantified.
Yeah.
I'll also say that Verizon actually only won on upload speed by 0.3 megabits per second, so not even a
Okay.
full megabit.
Yeah.
But they say that like their voice app experience quantifies the experience of OpenSignal users when using over-the-top voice apps such as WhatsApp, Skype, and Facebook Messenger on an
Mhm.
operator's 5G network. It uses a model derived from the ITU approach for quantifying overall voice quality and a series of calibrated technical parameters.
Okay.
This
That
model
sounds.
characterizes the exact relationship between the technical measurements and perceived call quality.
I don't know, man. It sounds like a lot of gobbledygook to me. I mean, I hate to be a Verizon hater, and I probably poke them a little bit too much, but they've been sort of dead last, in this race to 5G. But
Well, I've been looking at some other metrics and it seems like Verizon's growth towards competing with T-Mobile has slowed.
yeah,
And I think that's because most of the mid-band that they have to deploy in dense urban areas and suburban areas is out now. So most of their customers that are going to be able to use this technology are using it. We're already on iPhone 14, um,
yeah,
13, 12. So we're 3 generations of iPhones that have 5G. Same with Android phones. So, at this point, most people that are going to use 5G are using it. And
yeah,
most people who have 5G service have it available. So I think Verizon and AT&T, AT&T still has some room for improvement and rollout for their network because they started about
yeah.
a year ago.
Hmm.
Verizon's now 18 months down this path. And I think, Verizon probably has another 6 to 12 months until they're fully built out. And
Yeah,
I think AT&T might have a little bit longer, but I just don't see them catching T-Mobile on. T-Mobile's at 200 megabits per second now, and
right.
they don't even have their C-band stuff yet. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
I just think that T-Mobile kind of will own this speed crown for the foreseeable future, and I think Verizon's going to lose the upload speed that they got here with OpenSignal fairly shortly once they get the new C-band spectrum because they could use a lot of that for uplink.
yeah. No, solid insights there, my friend. And Ookla, OpenSignal. I mean, it just seems like there's just sort of like this movement back and forth, like they're trying to pay homage to the operator, the mobile network operator of the quarter. But yeah, I think we've analyzed and and paralyzed that one quite a bit. But let me go to my third and final, and I'll be quick on this one. But I thought this was interesting. So the NTIA, so that's the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, released additional funding to tribal entities, so Native American areas in the U.S. And this grant was 8.39 million to 17 entities, and this is coming out of a nearly $3 billion program called the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program, and it's part of this Infrastructure and Investments and Jobs Act that was passed a couple of years ago in 21, and it just got me thinking. Obviously, there isn't a lot of specific detail behind what's going to get deployed, but certainly there are requirements that certain speeds, upload and download, have to be met. So with respect to and the goal is sort of a hybrid fiber wireless network with speeds above 25 megabits per second and under 100 millisecond latency for basically over 600 locations on what's called the Bishop, and I'm going to mispronounce it, Pote, P-A-I-U-T-E reservation. Um, that's a pretty low bar. And again, there's no specific reference to like how this is all going to get done, but it got me thinking, could 5G fixed wireless access play a role? We were talking about all three of the tier one MNOs in the U.S. AT&T is making a considered investment in tribal. They've had a number of announcements where they're investing. They're actually over investing in these areas where it's going to take a longer time for them to get a payback from a fiber perspective. But certainly in tribal nations, as that fiber infrastructure gets built out, it can serve as backhaul for 5G and for 5G fixed wireless access. Because as we've also discussed, I believe on prior podcasts, as you put FWA users on that network, they tend to consume a hell of a lot more data than a mobile user, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So you get to some theoretical limits where you bomb out and you've got to add additional infrastructure in the form in an FWA scenario, you've got to densify with small cells and macro cells and that sort of thing. So, but it just got me thinking, I mean, that should be sort of a part of the plan. And I'm sure all the MNOs are going to be sort of vying and submitting their RFPs and that sort of thing for this. I mean, that amount that was released this just recently isn't a ton of money in the big scheme of things, but when you look at the overall macro program, I didn't realize that program was funded with $3 billion. I mean, that's a significant amount of money, and you could do a lot with fixed wireless access, in my perspective, and even subsidize some of the fiber for backhaul. But don't know if you caught it. This was an article that was published by Fierce Telecom. It was Masha. Did you mention that Masha published another article that you spoke about today?
No, that was Monica.
Oh, that was Monica. Okay.
But
yeah, Masha. Yeah, Arbanova.
I did hear about this, and honestly, I think one of the biggest challenges for a lot of these reservations is delivering internet connectivity to them, especially when these reservations are quite a bit larger in the West. And yeah, I just think using fixed wireless, especially when you think about the terrain that a lot of these reservations are on, being able to put maybe a millimeter wave fixed wireless deployment on top of a mountain, as long as it's not like a sacred mountain or something, you can really help to improve the quality of life for a lot of these people that I think in a lot of ways the US government hasn't really treated that well. So I think it's really important that the government is finding ways to improve internet coverage and access, because ultimately the internet is the great equalizer in a lot of ways. And I hope that they're able to take these funds and really make good use of them to deploy it, serious 5G networks that improve people's lives.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there's a lot of impoverished parts of tribal nations, and and it gets back to the digital divide. I mean, when you can provide reliable connectivity, that can create all types of opportunities for economic job growth, new hybrid work from home. These folks can find new opportunities as well. And I'll just mention, it's not a direct parallel to what we're talking about, but I did publish an article this week about an experience that I had here. I'm in my second home in Islamorada for the week, and just a lack of, or not a lack of connectivity, but basically the public mobile network bombing out during an event where the Rotary Club of Islamorada was selling concessions to raise money for scholarships for kids in the Florida Keys that are underprivileged. It just got me sort of thinking about, wow, there are so many different things that municipalities can consider, whether it's fixed wireless access or it's private networking. So it just kind of made me think about that article. So just wanted to share with my viewers and listeners that I did post that today, and I kind of talk about really more or less an opportunity for private networking in the Florida Keys to support the tourism industry, much different than tribal nations that are struggling with unemployment and some levels of poverty. But here, the service industry, it's dominant. Bartenders, fishing charters, snorkel excursions, even some of the local bars and restaurants, and connectivity. I kind of point out how connectivity can really drive a better tourism experience, but most importantly, maximize revenue for an industry like tourism. But with that shameless plug, let's go to your third and final topic. And you want to talk about another really cool activation like I talked about earlier, but this is with Wimbledon and Vodafone.
Yeah, so this is a Wimbledon Vodafone partnership. And basically what they're doing is they're partnering with a company called GiveVision that creates headsets that have smartphones inside of them that allow for vision impaired users to actually be able to more easily see what's happening on the court. And they're able to kind of like bring these images closer to the eye and stimulate photoreceptors in ways so that sight can be regained. And they're using 5G to power this experience because previously fans who use these headsets with this technology would have to be within 10 to 20 meters of a transmitter box in a predetermined accessibility zone. And now with 5G, they're able to kind of experience this in any part of the stadium without having to, sit in a special section and can experience the match together with their friends and family, as opposed to having to, sit in a special section so they can enjoy it. And it's really cool because this is something that I think enhances the user experience for users who might otherwise not go to an event like this because they know that they can't see anything. And it's just really exciting because this is a really powerful application of 5G that I think realizes the potential of the technology to enhance something that already existed before it, but improves accessibility to that and maybe even helps scale the technology to a point where it can be more viable in more places, and maybe they can deploy this in more arenas rather than having to pick and choose which court or which stadium they deploy it in. Because I don't know if you've ever been to Wimbledon, but there's a center court, main court, and then there's a bunch of side courts. And this could definitely be one of those things where you could deploy one central compute solution in the whole facility, and every single court is enabled by it. And I think that's really something that would help to improve access and enjoyment for people who have impaired vision.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fantastic, again, demonstration of the power of 5G. Just the whole inclusivity aspect of it. And to your point, I mean, often people that have impairments, they can't enjoy some of the simple things that those of us without impairments enjoy. And so I think the inclusivity aspect of this is really powerful. I haven't been to Wimbledon, but I've seen the layout, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the scalability of it could be potentially exciting. I think, and just beyond this use case, I think the potential for people that are sight impaired, there could be other use cases and applications, and that's often the case with a technology or with a technology demonstration, that it gets really, really smart people and developers and engineers and software, engineers stimulated, right? And it's just, it's this whole notion. One of my catchphrases, competition, sort of drives innovation. So that was a great use case. I didn't catch that, so I appreciate you sharing it, my friend. But hey, it's been another great podcast as we wrap up our 4th of July week, but why don't you take us home?
Absolutely. We hope our viewers and listeners found this week's topics interesting. If anyone out there would like to provide insights on a specific 5G topic for a future podcast, please reach out to us on social media. Will is at Whaletown Tech, and I'm at Anshel. We hope you have a great weekend, and please tune in next week. And don't forget to rate and subscribe.